Welcome to a Wiser Retirement Podcast. We put together a guide with some recommendations to help you focus on being financially fit at different milestones in your life. Some of you may be ahead of schedule, while others may have to play catch up. You can download this guide for free on our website. The link to download Your Path to a Lifetime of Financial Success is listed in the episode description. Or you can go to wiserinvestor.com, scroll to the bottom, and find it there. Now on to today's episode.
Welcome to a Wiser Retirement Podcast. We believe the best financial advice should always be conflict-free. I'm your host, Casey Smith. Guiding you to financial freedom today are my co-hosts, Brad Lyons and Michaela Dowdy. Hey, Michaela.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, Brad.
Hi, Casey.
So, Michaela, this is your second podcast with us.
It is.
Welcome
Had to come back for more.
Welcome to the round table.
Yes.
Literally, it's a round table. So today we're going to talk about financial planning in our 20s. And I mean, I tell you, I don't know that we meet with too many 20-year-olds, late 20s probably, but 20s are all about just getting started in life. You just graduated.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Where'd you graduate from again?
Samford University.
Samford University. That's in Birmingham.
It is.
And you were a finance major?
I was.
So you should have a head start on all this, right? They teach you all the things about life, and you're a finance major, right?
I think you get a lot of a broad concepts of like macro and microeconomics and understanding market language and all of those things. But in the nitty gritty of understanding personal finance, I think that comes at more of a surface level because I think it is something that they don't focus as much on the personal side of things. It's a lot more of the corporate side of things from my experience. And so I think it is something to now be on the personal side is really nice and getting to learn firsthand.
Yeah, that was a sarcastic comment.
Oh.
Yeah. So, yeah, because they don't. I mean, I was a finance major too and had to learn kind of through the School of Hard Knocks. Brad, you know about the School of Hard Knocks, right?
Yes. They knocked me many times.
Yeah, I'm a multi-year graduate.
Yeah. With multiple degrees.
With multiple degrees, yes, that's right. All advanced. Yeah, that is true. I mean, even finance majors. But you're studying the CFP now.
Yes.
So obviously that's all very practical for the
No,
most
definitely.
part.
Yes.
So that brings some things in. But, so I'm 44. We won't talk about Brad's age. Brad's a little bit older than me.
A little bit.
Yeah. I would have done, let me think about this carefully. I would have done some things different in my 20s. Now, for me personally, I'm a very big goal setter and go achieve things. And so sometimes I'm like, achieve things at all cost. Like, could be dollars, could be time, whatever, right? So for me, I wanted to be in the world of finance, but at the same time, I had this yearning to fly airplanes. So I took that time in my 20s to learn how to fly an airplane and flew airplanes for 12 years. And I enjoyed it. I'm glad I transitioned to this now. I did both for many years. So I don't regret that. But there's probably car purchases. There's probably trips. I don't know about trips because I was an airline pilot. I didn't really pay for trips. Every day was a trip for the most part. But there's probably things there that I could have done differently. I definitely wish I'd saved more personally, like in retirement plans. And I put money into a retirement plan early on because I knew I was supposed to do that. But man, if I'd put in 5% more, what a huge difference I'd make at this point, right?
Yeah, and that is one of the basic behaviors that we would like to impart upon 20-year-olds is that, establishing good, financial behavior patterns, such as saving in a 401k or a retirement plan at work. So, and it's amazing how when I think back on my 20s, which were a wonderful time and many things that happened that really can't be discussed here. But,
PG,
I don't know that I would have missed that extra 1 or 2% that I had saved in a 401k looking back on it, from today's world for me, Right. So your point is well taken that if you had just saved an extra few percent, seems like today, looking back in the past, I would have never missed it. Okay.
Especially starting out, because I feel like starting out, you don't have much anyway. So maybe the best budget strategy is just pay yourself first. Like, forget about all this other stuff, because assuming you don't have a whole lot of debt, just put away, if you can put away 15% of what you make, that's a huge number.
It's a huge number.
A huge percentage.
Right.
But it's not a huge number.
Right. But if the employer's contributing a part of that,
yeah,
you know,
Very
you don't
true.
have to do it all on your own.
True. Yeah. Because I guess we say all this because it's the power of compounding. So to grow money over time, it's that extra 10 years that makes a huge difference, because most of us don't have good incomes until we're probably closer to 40s, right? So at that point, you've lost 10, 15, 20 years to be able to compound money on top of each other. Now, occasionally you get a redo. Like, we're probably in the middle of a little bit of a redo when you have this big sell-off in the market. Financial crisis was an opportunity. The 2008, COVID was an opportunity. Financial crisis was an opportunity, if you still had a job, to be able to put more money to work. But usually we get so scared, we tend not to do that. I think it's more of, how do you participate in the long-term growth of the S&P 500? And you can take, when I was in school, in my mind, everything was about investing, everything, right? And I remember even in my public speaking class, I made it about investing. And you had to do a speech in front of your whole classmates, right? Which never bothered me, as you can tell. But I did Jack and Jill. And I remember this yesterday. So Jack and Jill went up the hill. I heard the rhyme, right? But then Jill was, a crazy sister, and Jack annoyed her. And so she just hit him on the head with the bale, and he went tumbling back down. And, he was injured and decided not to go to college, made really poor decisions, not even trade school, right? just quit right there. And so he got a job at a mill, and he could only save like $2,000 a year. Extra, that's all he really had. And then Jill was really concerned about him, that she went on the medical school for all those years, and she didn't really start saving until her mid-30s. But she saved like the max she could save in her plan. And ironically, who had more money?
Jack did.
Jack did. Mm-hmm. Jack had a lot. I don't remember how much more money he had. I'd have to go back and look at my notes from that speech. But but the point is,
I don't know which is stranger, the story itself or the fact that he thinks he still has it somewhere.
It's kind of impressive you remember it. That was
it's
20 years ago?
Yes. That was 20 years ago. I'm going with that. That was 20 years ago. But the point is that it's the same story. We read about it in every analogy of why you should be saving money sooner. Mm-hmm. It's the same story.
Well, compounding has been compared to and called the eighth wonder of the world. You have the seven wonders of the world, but compounding interest is considered to be the eighth wonder of the world.
And you only participate over to time. The max, over time. So that's why if you're 50 years old and you're making $1 million a year, you got to put in $300,000-$400,000 a year to save in order to hit your goal. And we have clients who do that,
right?
And it's worked for them. But how you're going to roll the dice on that? You're building a foundation. You're building a solid foundation. And there were things in my life happening at the time that probably made me spend more money than I wanted to. But ultimately going back to it, it's where you are. It's a station in life. It's not permanent when you're starting out, and you just have to establish good habits.
And like you said, it is a station, and that by definition all makes it relative too. So if you're saving a certain amount of money or percentage of your income, it's relative to how much you make. So if you're saving 10% of your income, whether you're making $30,000 a year or 60 or 90 or 120, it's all relative.
Right.
You're saving 10% of your income. Okay. Yeah. So we don't want listeners to think that, it's only 10% of 30,000 is only 3,000. That's nothing. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'll start saving when I'm making 60, or I'll start saving when I'm making 90.
Right.
No, go ahead and start saving when you're making 30, because that compounding interest takes place on that $3,000 a year that you're saving throughout your 20s until you reach that higher age. that makes a huge difference.
I think it's when you're in your 20s. You tell me. When you're in your 20s, it's expensive to live right now.
It is. It's very expensive, especially with inflation and just trying to walk through and into a grocery store shopping for one person, and it's over $100, and I don't buy that much food, so it's just it is a lot of just managing expenses. And I think for the first time when you're in your early 20s, most of the time that's your first time to really be managing everything on your own. And so it really is definitely something. I know when I was about to take the job here and I was like looking at apartments and looking at salaries and those kinds of things, and I was like, okay, let's build a budget. And so I literally had to build a budget for myself to make sure I still had enough to save, and I could kind of figure out, okay, this is a ballpark of what I can spend on groceries, and this is a ballpark of what I can spend on like fun activities to do or like experiences. And so it really is like just sitting down and figuring out like, okay, this is how much I make, this is how much I can save with that, and still, live my life and have a good time living my life, just within its own barriers. And I think it's something that like saving shouldn't be thought of as, especially in your 20s, it shouldn't be thought of as like, oh, I'm constricting my life, I'm not going to get to experience so many things because I'm saving this money. And it's like, no, that's not the case. It really is. It's like giving you the freedom to know that when you're spending that money, you've already saved. Like, that's already came off the top. So now you can go and spend that money and know you've already taken care of your future self. And so instead, that's more freeing than it is really constricting.
To the earlier point that colleges and high schools even really don't talk much about personal finance. In college, you learn how to have a career, what type of career you want to have, but they don't tell you what to do once you begin that career. That's all left up to the student, then the 20-something employee to figure out on their own. And there's very few resources to find out there that actually apply to your circumstance in order to your point, how much is it going to cost me to live? Is this salary going to be appropriate for me? What are the types of things that I want to do, for recreation and enjoyment? And am I going to be able to do this all on what I'm making? And how do I arrange that? Okay. And that's really a shame, I think, and it's on our education system. Okay. We teach up to a certain point, but then we don't teach about the rest of life afterwards very much. Now, there are some schools now that have moved into financial planning as a curriculum, okay? But you devote your entire career to it. And there are those that don't necessarily want to have a career in this business, but they'd like to know something about it. So I think it should be moved into part of your core curriculum in every case.
So Berry College, they do Beyond the Berry Bubble once a year, and they have a Q&A, have a panel of people. Mm-hmm. They have students can ask questions, and someone does a presentation about budgeting, maybe one of the clubs on campus or something like that, or about personal finance. I don't know that it's heavily attended, and it's just an optional, get cultural events credit or something like that. But it's almost something that should be focused on that. And I think this is getting off topic, but we should be doing that, and then an ethics course, business ethics course. I think people have kind of forgotten about business ethics.
Is that not something that's built into most curriculums?
Ethics? Mm-hmm. No, not really.
Really? Okay. Well, I actually took like 2 business ethics classes.
Interesting.
In college.
Good for Stanford.
Yeah.
Do you see maybe some of your friends, but do you not see that there's a little bit of a trap that you're used to a certain lifestyle as a child of a family, and you leave that family to start your own life, and assuming there's not a trust fund or a stipend following you, that you feel like maybe they feel like, not you specifically, but they feel like that, well, I deserve this because this is how I've always lived?
I think a little bit. I think that kind of goes into like if they're feeling like entitled, I think is a lot of it. And I know we love to use that on our good generation. But I think there is something, if they're not kind of walk through, like I was grateful enough that my like parents really gave me like so many resources to understand finance. So like when I was, back to school shopping as like a 5th grader, I had a budgeted amount that I knew how much I had, and I held like a card that was literally like, okay, if you're going to buy that, that's coming out of your money.
Right.
And it was like, oh, okay. Do I really want that? And, my mom jokes it was the best thing she ever did because I went to the sales racks then because I wanted the most bang for my buck.
Right.
So it really is something that I think if you're taught great money practices, like from a young age, and like, especially like, I mean, I still remember that 4th and 5th grade, and so if you're taught that, then I think you understand that concept of money more. But I think it's when you're getting out into the real world and no one's ever been like, this is money, your bank account doesn't just replenish by itself,
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that if you haven't been taught that, then it is such a big like whirlwind of, oh my gosh, what is this? Like, I now have a limited budget. I don't know what to do with it. I used to just swipe my card, not have a worry in the world. And what is this? And so I think it's something that if you're taught what money is, and I think that that's something that like is shifting a little bit, because I think you're seeing the digital age of like Venmo and,
Right.
crypto and all this stuff that's coming like into our generation. And is you have banks that don't have storefronts or brick and mortar. And so it is I guess definition of money's changing, but it's still the same entity of it. Like you're still just transitioning to get something. And so it's still just a transaction. And so, yeah, it's one of those things where if they're not taught money and what the principles of money are, then yes, I think it can be a very big shell shock.
So you start swiping the card, and the card's in your name, not your parents' name. And so now you have credit card debt.
Yes.
Right? And it happens really
does.
quick. And you're like, oh my gosh, I owe $20,000 to Amex. And to me, that's a killer, because how do you overcome that, especially if you're not getting big bonuses yet? And you're not.
Well, we use the word entitled. Okay. Another word could be accustomed.
Yes.
Okay. You're
That's a good
accustomed to
word.
a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And the parents have built that lifestyle up over a lifetime of, savings and workings and earnings, et cetera.
Right.
I think that younger generations would be well served if they taught that you may not have this lifestyle right off the bat.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And we talked here about credit cards. Credit cards are a convenience at their highest form. They're simply a convenience of way to pay for things. But what happens is young people, if you get into the wrong behavioral patterns, begin to view it as a second source of income.
Or the emergency reserve.
Yes, that's right. Okay, which essentially creates this ability to withdraw money that you don't have, with the idea of paying it back in the future. And depending upon whether you're using it for consumable items or non-consumable items, you get into this trap of paying for things that you've consumed and are gone and you no longer have, but you now have the payment ahead of you for years to come.
Yes. And I think that's something also, I know I've seen it on like a lot of my social media, which is where a lot of us 20-somethings get our information. And really a lot lately you've seen on everything, just you should get a credit card so you can get the points and you can get these benefits. And that is something that if you have like the ability to, look at your credit card in a healthy way, then yes, like that's a great benefit to a credit card. But at the end of the day, you shouldn't be getting a credit card because you want the points if you know that like you don't have the self-control to do that. And so I think that that's something that's really dangerous, that we're now like another way for credit card companies to promote. And I get that, of just being like, okay, hey, inflation's going up. You need more money to spend. And guess what? If you get a Southwest credit card or whatever, then you'll get miles and you'll get points and you can go on a trip because we know you love experiences. And so I think that that's something that is a dangerous game. And so I think they came out like last week saying that credit card expenses have gone up a lot within the last month. I don't know the exact number.
The balances are at record highs in the U.S.
Yes.
Credit card companies are some of the best marketers and advertisers we've ever seen.
Absolutely.
And then you combine that with social media. And as the younger generation is so accustomed to social media, they absorb it so quickly. Okay. We need to find ways to discern, quite frankly, whether or not that's a good message that I'm being shown or sent at this point in time.
Yeah.
And that's hard, quite frankly. That's hard. So,
Yeah, I think the takeaway is stay out of debt. If you go into it with debt, into your 20s with debt, student loan debt's one thing. That's probably that's definitely a multi-year objective is to get out of that. But it's to stay away from credit card debt. You don't need a Mercedes. You don't need a sports car at this point. You're going to pay higher insurance rates anyway. You just need reasonable transportation that's affordable. And think about just establishing a good solid base. And also too, I would think for single people, if people are getting married later now, you don't want to go into a new relationship with someone who has tons of debt and is just really bad with money. I mean, figure this stuff out at the beginning, because you go into a relationship with somebody who can't handle money. That's just another heartache that you're going to have to deal with over time. Now, some people, doesn't mean that you have to be perfect with it. It just means that some people are better than others. And as long as you establish who's the boss when it comes to, do we take on debt? Do we not take on debt? And are we saving enough? Then I guess that works out. But usually with couples, opposites attract, right? So we usually see one couple or one spouse that's just really good at kind of managing things, and the other spouse says, "Okay, well, what can I spend on X, Y, Z?" And that works out really well. Others, they will butt heads over it, and they probably never make it into our office because they don't ever build wealth, right? Brad, did you do anything specifically with your kids growing up to teach them about money?
Well, we brought them into the decision-making process, quite young, and allowed them to make certain decisions on their own. So they got practice at it. And one of that was money, quite frankly. Now, we didn't give them allowances, or they didn't earn through chores. Chores were just something you did around the house because everybody does. Yeah. But as they got their driver's license, and then they were able to go to their summer job, they got summer jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was no question about it that at 16, they got their driver's license, they were getting a summer job. And so that was their income. A certain amount went into savings, a certain amount went into their checking account. And the beauty of online and apps and stuff was that we could all track it.
Yeah.
Okay. So they could track it, we could track it. The bank accounts were linked between ours and theirs online, at least, and so that I could assist them with monies going back and forth and show them how it was done. So it was very, I'll say tactical. They earned it. It was theirs.
Yeah.
They got to spend a portion of it. They got to save a portion of it. And as they saw those balances climb over time, they became more and more protective of that money as well, because that was their money, but they actually had to go out, get up in the morning, go to work, and earn on their own. And so that was, taught them how to work, taught them how to save. So absolutely.
Going back to our last theme, we had legacy planning and talking about building a legacy and teaching the next generation to act like the first generation in building wealth, not destroying wealth, right? The topic came up at a dinner table one night, and you realize that my kid's school, my oldest is 17. None of his friends have jobs. Nobody has a job. Nobody. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
And for him, I've let him not have to get a job because his job right now is a D1 golf scholarship, and he's out there doing chipping and putting drills for hours. And so I said, okay, well, that's his job. That's his thing. But when I see him on Find My Friends, and I see him off at a friend's house, and it's 5 o'clock and there's 6 o'clock in the evening, I'm like, oh, are we getting off track here? We're supposed to be working on our drills and our, but then he was telling me at one of the charity events that they do, I guess were asked to mow this older lady's yard, and all his buddies were standing around this lawnmower, and nobody had a clue how to start the mower. And he has mowed our grass, probably a handful of times, maybe 2 handful of times, but he has gone out and done it because I said, hey, go mow the grass. The yard guys are behind on their job or something. So he knew how to start a mower, but I was like, man, how does this translate? How do kids in this environment, they're all very smart. They're all doing well in school. They'll all probably get masters, and their parents are super smart, but every one of their parents, I know their parents, all their parents had summer jobs. We talk about it. We talk about how crappy our first cars were, You know, so it's going to be interesting to see how this next generation evolves in their 20s. You know, I'll be very transparent. You know, my son has my credit card with his name on it. So if he needs gas, he just fills up. But I think that's going to change soon, because the more I think about it, I go, you know, he needs to be able to just probably having to do an allowance system. He makes money. He plays with all the old guys at the country club, and they all bet money, and he comes home with $600 in his pocket. So,
well, that's a job.
He's like, I'm like, where did this $600 come from? He's like, man, Dad, I had to birdie the last 3 holes in a row to get it. I was behind the whole round. So he is doing his craft, I guess. But yeah, that's something that we're probably gonna have to switch up around our house. Other two are a little young yet to really be focused on that. They do stuff around the house, but not necessarily for chore money. You know, so I guess the big thing is stay away from debt. Don't spend carelessly, as if, you know, there's just an endless amount of money. And start putting away something for yourself. Create the habit. Maybe it's 10%. Put away 10%. Something for your future. And if you don't have a capability to do a 401k plan, maybe you're at a small company or just started, you can't participate, put it into a Roth IRA. You know, you can go to Ameritrade.com, tdameritrade.com, and put it into a Roth, and start there. Put it in the S&P 500. That's a good, safe investment advice, right? Put it in the S&P 500. Mm-hmm. You can't go wrong, especially probably for the next 6 months, it looks like. Pay off old debt. Don't take on new debt, right? Make sure you're going into your 30s and you're debt free. Work a side hustle. You're in your 20s. You should have tons of energy, right? Work a side hustle and or focus on your career to get promoted faster. Do things to try and generate that extra that extra money. We do have a couple of podcasts on this. If you can look at 4 steps to getting financially organized. That's actually on our YouTube channel. Should you also look at if you need to hire a financial advisor, we have episode 54 talks about hiring the right financial advisor. We talk about active versus passive investing. That was one thing I was going to mention. So many 20-year-olds are like into crypto and they're into buying individual stocks, and it's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be a bloodbath, right? Because they're not just buying Bitcoin and putting $100 over there and walking away from it. They're trading. They're buying stuff that has no value whatsoever. Shiba coin or Dogecoin or whatever it's called, right? Thinking that you're going to make all this money. You know what? You got to have sound investing principles. And if you think that you're smarter than the market, because in your 20s you think you know more than everybody else, right? Until someone knocks you off your pedestal. So stick to the basics of investing. S&P 500 or VTI, the entire U.S. market. Just put it all in there. And walk away from it. Just walk away from it. Just put it in every single month. S&P is inside your 401ks. It's easily inside Roth IRAs or IRAs if you're doing that on your own. Invest it. Walk away from it. Don't look at it. It's boring, but it works good and it lasts a long time, right?
Yeah.
So just keep putting money in there every single month. Don't overthink it. Yes, a lot of money can be made on individual stocks, and if you want to gamify investing like Robinhood has, oh my gosh, Robinhood, you look at your phone when you have a client who does trading on the side. He showed me his phone. You're literally looking at on the app on Robinhood, and when the market's trading, your balance is moving in real time. So it's not refreshing. Every time you refresh it, it changes. It's literally moving at you on the screen like you're watching a movie. And that's gamifying investing. That's the wrong way to look at it. You know, you put it in there, you look at it once a quarter. That's what you need to do. And just have that practice over the long time. And you're going to be a multimillionaire in your 20s. It's easy. You can be Jack, get hit in the head, not go to school, put $2,000 away every year, and you're going to be a millionaire, right? So that's where it all starts. And it's just, unfortunately, if you are 20 and you are listening to this, you know, good for you. most of your peers probably aren't, right? And they aren't going to try to do the right thing because they just know everything. Or they have time. When you're in your 20s, you think you have tons of time, but it flies by like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Brad?
Yes, it does. But I have more time, too. But time is the key.
Yes.
And that's the irony of all this, is that in our 20s, we think we have time to do it later. The time to do it is now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You had more time. You have more
because
time.
you have
20s.
time.
Yeah, you do.
You can do less because you have a lot more time.
Right. I have 3 kids and 2 high-demand time sports, and then now a third starting to enter something like that, and then running a company and doing all this stuff. And I look back and go, what did I do in my 20s? Because I must have had a lot of dinners out with a lot of friends, because I don't remember a whole lot of what happened in my 20s. Now, I was always older than I really was. I will admit that. So when other people were out having fun and spending all their money, I was learning how to fly an airplane, and I was starting down that career. So I leaped ahead of my peers very quickly. But over time, they all caught up, and many have passed me at this point, is how people judge such things, I guess. But yeah, it's ultimately, I think, you just have to have a plan, and your plan doesn't have to be complicated, but there's a goal and you're headed towards something. If you don't have a plan, if you don't know what you want to do, you're kind of floundering around. It's a great time to go experiment, try different jobs, doing different things. But the bottom line is it all has one thing, an income, and you're just staying out of debt, right? Mm-hmm. Working your way through, working your way up the ranks, and everything's going to be just fine. There's going to be a lot of valleys probably along the way, but if you start off your life financially sound, then you'll be great. And I keep repeating myself, but the bottom line is, you have to be smart and ask people that have gone ahead of you what they're doing or what they did, people you deem to be successful, and ask questions.
Yes,
right?
Not the also 20-something on social media telling you to invest in this, and this.
Correct.
Because they're the same life station as you, and they don't have any more knowledge than you do, other than they might have watched a few more YouTube videos and read a couple more books. So just make sure you're reaching out to someone who's like an older mentor who has walked through life a few more seasons than you have, and let them, that's a great time to welcome a financial advisor, maybe not in your 20s, but start having those kinds of conversations and figuring out, how to move forward and what are your best next steps, opposed to listening to the sounds of the people that are also your same age.
Yeah. Or start reading some books. Random Walk Down Wall Street. That's a great book. You read that book, didn't you?
I did.
Did you read that in school, or did you read it when you started here?
I read it, started it from a request from a professor. It was one of his recommendations for me to read it. And then I fully read it when I was here.
Yeah. That really explains everything you know about investing.
Yes.
It's a very long book, but I think it's an easy read.
No.
But yeah, that would give you some ideas about investing. Personal finance book, I don't know. Dave Ramsey has one. He has several now, but financial peace course, that would be a great thing to do in your 20s. Take a financial peace course. I think it's $80 to take it.
Yes.
You can do it online, or you can go to a group and do it with a group. Mm-hmm. But that would give you some basics. He's got some hardcore stuff that it's kind of like money boot camp, I guess.
Yes.
You got workout boot camp, which someone in our office is doing now. I don't see how she does it. She's it's like you just pay for punishment. But the money boot camp, it's called Financial Peace. Dave Ramsey. I think everyone should be doing that process. We and the people that come to our doorstep get that same advice, right?
They do.
You give it to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
The baby steps, right? You can go hardcore with that. I don't know if I would go that hardcore with it, but the principles are there. Just follow those principles.
Right. And it's a process. And our 20s are an opportunity to implement that process in our financial life. Okay. Now's the time. The 20s are the time to do that. Okay. Because as Dave Ramsey would say, live like no one else so that later on you can live like no one else.
Yep.
That's his point.
Yeah. Live like no one else, which means you're not buying a crazy new car with a crazy car payment. You're not maybe getting the nicest apartment initially. You're getting a good apartment, safe apartment. That's important, right? But what did you tell me yesterday? A bougie. You had somebody, you knew a friend or somebody who got a bougie apartment.
Yes,
and
I did say that.
you're like, I really like his bougie apartment, and but you got the practical apartment, right? So
Yes.
two different things. These are all terms we have to learn, Brad.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. We digress. This is not even about finance anymore.
Yeah.
It's just culture conversation. All right, guys, enjoyed it. Talk to you next time.
All right.
Thanks for listening to a Wiser Retirement podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening, that way you don't miss any new episodes. We would also appreciate if you could leave a rating and review. If you have any questions about anything that was discussed today, head to wiserinvestor.com and reach out. We would love to hear from you. This episode was produced and edited by Lilton Moore. This podcast is strictly for informational purposes only and is not to be considered as investment advice or a solicitation to buy or sell any financial products, securities, digital assets, or any other investment vehicles, or a basis to make any financial decisions. Wiser Wealth Management Incorporated is a registered investment advisor with the SEC. The host and/or guest may personally own securities, digital assets, or other investment vehicles mentioned on this podcast. Neither the host nor guest of the show are compensated for their participation, and no referral fees are paid to or received by any host or guest for clients, listeners, or similar interests. Investments involve risk, and unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified financial advisor, tax professional, insurance professional, and/or legal professional before implementing any strategy discussed herein. Past performance is not indicative of future performance.